JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Goodness, we got a lot of videos about PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, loan forgiveness application, but my gosh, I mean, you talk about a ton of guidelines. It's an 11-page application. I appreciate you tuning in again to talk some more about the actual application process. Now, what are we talking about in this video? We're talking about the safe harbor. Okay, and this would be for those that had employees. So if you're self-employed and you didn't have employees, you don't have to worry about this at all. But this is one of the most misunderstood parts of this Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness, right? This is the one that I had a bunch of videos back in March and early April where I was trying to let everybody know, it's not just like, oh, hey, all I gotta do is replace my employees by June 30 and it's all forgiven. Trying to entertain you. I'm a CPA. Here's the deal. Maybe it's as easy to just go day before, you're hired. You're getting paid. Everybody get in here. Let's go. It's June 30. Get in here. Yeah, we're good. Woohoo! Maybe. But I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be shocked if the SBA doesn't come up with some additional guidelines to ensure that on July 1st, you're not like, get out of here. Boom. Get out of here. Thanks for joining me for a day. Okay? Really? Maybe, right? I think that's part of scamming the system, but my gosh. But here's the deal. Everybody still, though, is just like, they just have all this confidence in 1106 5D. And they're just like, yeah, you just hire everybody back by June 30 and we're good. Okay, the first thing to remember is this. You're only going to get forgiven. Now, hear this one. You're only going to get forgiven on what you actually spent. Okay? Because there's still the misperception out there like, well, I'm just going to keep the money and then I'll hire everybody June 30 and then I got it all forgiven. Wrong. It's only on the amount that you spend, number one. Number two, you take your payroll costs, you divide it up, blah, 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 blah. Now we have an 11-page application for forgiveness. So I want to talk about the safe harbor mostly because I want to make sure you understand it, okay? I want to make sure you understand and you're not laying in a bed of confidence because you completely are missing one key aspect of this safe harbor. Because when you really read it, and this is maybe justifies why some of my videos I was just like on and on, it's like, it's not just that easy because of the time period that is the safe harbor time period, okay? There's a misconception of just like, well, just whenever I let go of some people, if I get skin back by June 30, we're good. Wrong, it doesn't work that way, okay? There's a specific period of time that if you reduced employees and reduced salaries and wages during this time and then restored it by June 30, then you are safe harbor and you don't have to take into account the reductions related to any reduction in salary and any reduction in FTEs. You follow? Okay, so if you got rid of people in May, this is nothing involved with this safe harbor. That's the part I want you to really latch onto out of this video is that this is way more narrow than everybody is thinking, okay? And this is based on that loan application, and what we're focusing in on is on the loan application, okay? We're going to page 7, step 2, and we're also looking at page 9, okay? There's multiple steps on page 9. So on page 7, it's dealing with the salaries reduced more than 25%. And then on page 9, it's talking about the FTE reduction. And both of these is the calculation to determine if you have the safe harbor, okay? And then I'm also looking at the SBA guidelines for forgiveness that came out on 5/22/2020, okay? And I'm going to page 21, and I'm at 5G, as in Gordon. Gecko. So We're talking about salaries reduced, are they? Or have they been reduced enough that we're not going to meet the safe harbor? And what about FTEs? Okay, so a couple of quick things there on the salaries reduction. Okay, it's only on the salary, wages, compensation amounts, okay, that were reduced more than 25%, and it is determined employee by employee. Okay, so it's more than 25%. So if you paid someone, $12 an hour, and then you paid them, $11.75 an hour. What did I just say? Let's say you paid them $12 an hour. Now you're paying them $11.75 an hour. Okay, you're not below that threshold, right? But if you were in a circumstance where someone got $1,000 a week, and now you're only paying them $700 a week, right? Well, now you're in a situation you reduce their pay $300. So the first $250 of reduction in pay doesn't affect the safe harbor calculation. Okay, in that circumstance, only the $50 amount would affect the salary reduction safe harbor calculation. What? Yeah, I know. But that salary deal is on page 7, specifically step 2, but there's multiple steps you go through related to the salaries. So the thing to note is that, if your salaries for whatever reason are down on that particular employee because they didn't work as much, okay, that's where the FTE safe harbor can come into play. So what you're looking at here is a secondary potential reduction in your loan forgiveness based on the FTEs. That's based on 40 hours. So you just take all the hours that were worked by all the employees, divide it out by 40, and there's how many FTEs you have. On the FTEs, talk about in the other videos, the way that the SBA came down on it in the SBA guidelines here for forgiveness is that it is 40 hours period, and basically you do 0.25 FTE. So if someone works 10 hours, it's going to be a 0.25 FTE. They work 20 hours, 0.5, so on and so forth. There's an alternate method where you can just say, hey, all part-time people are 0.5 and all full-time people are 1. And that's based on a 40-hour a week work week. So the thing is I've got another video that talks about how this all applies on the FTEs. I talk about the utilities. I'm going to be talking about how you calculate the salary actual reduction and how you figure out the FTE reduction. But this, I feel like, is the most misunderstood safe harbor, because here's the deal. We are talking about these things, okay? The thing to note is that on this, okay, and this, the safe harbor period is that. Honestly, it doesn't even make any sense to call it safe harbor period. Anyways, the safe harbor period, and if you look at item G on page 21, and if you've watched my other videos on this stuff, I'm reading it because what is in essence right here, I want you to also hear what it says in the SBA guidelines. But what this is saying is that if the wages and the FTEs are reduced during this period, if they're reduced during this period only, and you replace them by June 30 or increase. So this right here, if this has a reduction in employees, if this has a reduction in salaries determined by employees, okay, and then that is in, that's all made whole by June 30, okay, then you do not have to take into account the FTE reduction potential or the salaries reduction potential, okay? So, I really want you, I'm telling you, it's a mind bender because you're like, okay, yeah, I get that. Let me make sure you get it, okay? Because what I just told you here, now I'd like to read. Please stick with me, and I appreciate you guys so much. So when we're looking at this, on page 21 of the SBA guidelines, it says for G, if an employer restores reductions made to employee salaries and wages or FTE employees by not later than June 30, can the borrower avoid reduction in its loan forgiveness amount? Question. Okay, this is in the guidelines. SBA says yes, but see, everybody just stops right there. And they think that, well, if I let somebody go in May, all I got to do is get them back by June 30 and I'm good to go. Nope, because that doesn't apply. Okay, I let them go May 15th, put them on some PUA for a few weeks. Okay, then I got them back by June 30. I'm good to go. Nope, because they're talking about reductions in employees, okay, and or reduction in salaries only during this period. Why is it April 26th? Because that's 30 days after when the CARES Act was enacted on March 27th. So if this here has reductions and then it's restored by June 30, then you don't have to pay attention to the reduction in FTEs or the reduction in salaries during the covered period compared to periods that have nothing to do with this. Okay? So, goodness, there's so much to this. Bear with me on this. When you're determining if you have FTE reductions, okay, you're looking at, this is crazy, okay? You're looking at what are your FTEs during your payroll period, which is either your covered or your alternative period. Now stay with me. When you're figuring out your FTE reduction calculation, which I've got a video, check it out. You're going, okay, what are my FTEs, average FTEs during my payroll period compared to one of 3 dates that have nothing to do with this date? Nothing to do with this date. You're comparing the FTEs during the covered period to the average FTEs February 15th, 2019 through June 30, 2019. What was your average FTEs during that period? Or from January 1st, 2020 to February 29th, 2020. So FTEs during current or covered period are compared to a period in 19 or the first 2 months in 2020. Now, if you're seasonal, okay, you pick 12 straight weeks between May 1st and September 30, and you can go with that average FTE. But here's what I want you to note: when you're comparing FTEs during the covered period, it's not compared to this. No, what it's saying is if during this period of time you had a reduction in employees and you had a reduction in salary during this time, okay? How many of you got your PPP money before 4/26? A few, right? A few. But it would only be if you had a reduction during the first part of the PPP that you had. It's only during this time period, the end. You follow? So, and the only reason I'm saying it that way is it's like I've had to read through it and read through it and read through it and calculate it and notes and, front and back, walking through all this stuff, okay? So what you can know is this part of it. This is why it's important for you to look at the safe harbor, because this has already occurred. This has already occurred, okay? So if during this period, okay, you're going up to this period, okay, during that period you have a reduction in employees, okay, because it's like, well, reduction compared to where? February 15th, okay? So February 15th or before, right? Right at it, February 15th. Right at February 15th or right around it, right? Depending on if, whatever date February 15th fell on. Point is that it's February 15th, what's everybody making? How many employees do you have? If there's a reduction during this period in FTE and salary, if you restore that by June 30, okay, then you don't have to basically suffer from these reductions in your forgiveness. Okay, now let's be really clear on this. Your forgiveness amount can never be more than what you actually spent on qualified expenses. Okay, so if you got a $108,000 PPP loan and you spent $100,000 on qualified expenses, then no more than $100,000 is going to be forgiven. Okay, if you have to suffer from an FTE reduction, okay, then whatever percentage of reduction in FTEs you have, that further reduces down the initial loan forgiveness that you had. So I've got a video where I walk through that. So if you used to have 10 employees and during the covered period you have 8, so you're at an 80% calculation or quotient, then only 80% of your loan forgiveness amount will be actually forgiven. So this is huge. So quote unquote, to avoid that FTE reduction, totally just, right hook. Right hook. You need to watch that video. I know it's a long one, but there's a lot to go over here. Because this other video I have, it's a simple calculation, and 20% of the forgiveness amount is not ultimately forgiven. Okay? So in that example, because I'm showing you now how important it is. Used to have 10 employees, now you got 8. Okay? You got an 80% quotient. That means 20% of your loan that you thought was forgivable won't be. You get 108,000, you spend 100 grand perfectly. Mwah! Payroll and non-payroll. Mwah! Perfect. Okay? But you have this little blip on your FTEs. You spent 100 on qualified expenses, but only 80,000 of it is going to be forgivable. Follow? But so many people think, and there were some scamsters out there trying to tell everybody, oh, well, just do this and then you can do that, and then you just rehire everybody by June 30 and got everything forgiven. Well, you got to spend it. And they're like, oh, well, you just spend all the money right in the last couple of weeks. It doesn't work. You go through all these calculations, that don't work. Okay? And we're past you trying to do it, right? I'm not saying like, oh, you're trying to do it. The whole point of this video is make sure you're aware of what this safe harbor really is. And it's a reduction during this period that's restored by June 30, 2020. So if you had a reduction in May, that's not happening. If you had a reduction, you got your PPP money at the tail end of this or right after that, and then you're like, you know what, go on PUA. Boom, keeping me some PPP money. Not gonna work out for you, okay? So there's a bunch of other things that we gotta go over, because by golly, all we're doing is covering 2 smaller calculations related to the safe harbor on the PPP application on page 7 and page 9. And then I'm tying that to the SBA guidelines of forgiveness. So I've also got on my website both of these items, okay, jjthecpahelp.com. There's no booby traps. You don't give me your email and then I give you a copy of this stuff. It's just free for you. Just click on it, it's yours. But what I want you to note here is that when you're relying on the safe harbor, you do know this already. You do know this. This is what you're trying to get. This is what you're trying to make whole by June 30, this period. Okay? Did you have a reduction during that period? Did you? Did you have a reduction? Hear me on this. I'm so glad you stayed till now. It's totally paying off for you. It's totally paying off for you, okay? Did you have a reduction during this period? three-pointer from half court, then you're not going to have a reduction, yo. Right? Bum, 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 bum. Trying to entertain you because we're 20 minutes in. Hear me on this, okay? I rewarded you for staying till here. I love you for it. I appreciate it. And if you are, I'm assuming you already subscribed, so I appreciate that. Probably don't even need to say, hey, will you subscribe? But here's the thing. If you had no reductions in the safe harbor period, boom, 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 this doesn't apply. Okay? That's my interpretation of this. Okay? Because there's nothing to restore. Right? If you kept everybody on payroll through this date and you didn't have any reductions, there's nothing for you to restore. There's no reduction for you to restore because this is the period that you have to restore. Right? So in essence, you've restored it. Right? There was nothing to restore, so therefore it's you restored it. Follow? I restored it. Take that period of time. How's it for June 30? Now, hear me on this though. This would assume that you didn't just, pick everybody off, okay, by June 30. But this is the hurdle you have to get over. So when people are like, oh, what if I hired some more people at the end of the PPP? Okay. If you don't have a reduction here and you just keep things at least the same, June 30, none of this applies to you, right? It's almost like a boom, a shortcut that went all the way around. Okay, here's 2 potholes. Okay, you don't have a reduction here, right? And then June 30, this is the same for you. Okay, you just went immediately around this. You went immediately around it. And what are these 2 potholes? That's taking info during the covered period compared to 2019, compared to the first 2 months of 2020. See how, these are scattered all over the place. Dates. That's why in the beginning I was just like, it's not going to work out. Because this is the safe harbor period that you're looking to restore by June 30. All right, I think I covered it. Safe harbor, salaries reduced, FTEs reduced. This is right here. This is what gets looked at from the covered period. This is what gets compared to either 2019, February 15th, 19 through June 30, 19, or January 1st, 2020 through 2/29, 2020, and then we have the seasonal additional exception. So this right here does not line up with these dates. Okay? So it says, yes, 1106D5 of the CARES Act provides that if certain employee salaries and wages were reduced between February 15th, 2020 and April 26th, 2020, the safe harbor period, but the borrower eliminates those reductions by June 30 or earlier, the borrower is exempt from any reduction in loan forgiveness amount that would otherwise be required due to the reduction in salaries and wages under section 1106D3 of the CARES Act. Similarly, if a borrower eliminates any reductions in FTE employees occurring during the safe harbor period by June 30, 2020 or earlier, the borrower is exempt from any reduction in loan forgiveness amount that would otherwise be required due to the reduction in employees. So this provision implements 1160D5. Why am I dancing like this? Just trying to entertain you. Of the CARES Act, which gives borrowers an opportunity to cure reductions in FTEs. I am reading this word for word because it's very specific. I already went through all of it here. I know what this is saying. I'm now reading it because it's story time. And you know why I do this? I'm also trying to entertain you. But I've been standing here. This is I think my 4th video today. And I've just been standing here, so I'm just stretching my feet a little. All right, I'm almost done. Which gives borrowers an opportunity to cure reductions in FTE, salary, wage reductions in excess of 25% or both, using the applicable methodology set forth in 1106D5, the Act provides that the reduction in FTEs or the reduction in the salary hourly wages must be eliminated not later than June 30, 2020. This does not affect the requirement that at least 75% of the loan forgiveness amount must be attributable to payroll costs. Now we know, I'm just gonna say, like basically what it's saying is you still gotta do 75% to payroll. But if you don't, the amount you did spend on payroll, okay, is going to yield a forgiveness amount. It's going to reduce down potentially overall, but nonetheless, if you don't meet the 75% mark, it's not an all or nothing. But what this does not change is you still have to spend it on the qualified expenses. And what this does not change is, in essence, no more than 25% on non-payroll costs and then at least 75% on payroll costs. All right, hey, I've got a playlist in here of other PPP forgiveness videos. I've got a website, No Booby Traps, and I tell you what, it's now basically 4 pages on there dedicated to PPP, just how to get PPP, and then related to self-employed PPP forgiveness, related to employer triple P forgiveness. And then I decided with all the SBA stuff coming out, I now just have a page with SBA documents on it and applications and all that kind of good stuff. So anyways, hey, thanks for tuning in. Might not be a lot of you that made it to this except my diehards, which I love ya. And by the way, for those that are still here, there's probably like 75 of you that would make it here to 100. So I love you. A couple of things to note is that if you didn't know, Amanda and I are going on tour. Okay, we're doing a JJ and Amanda tour, which actually we kicked off on Sunday, this last Sunday, by going up to Wichita and seeing our friends at Imagine That Toys. So you need to check out the reality show. But you know, why am I even saying this? You've already know this. If you made it to here, you already know we have the reality show. But nonetheless, I've got a playlist for that. And then also July 10th through July 27th, right? 17 days, 16 cities. Amanda and I are going to all 4 corners of these United States of America, California, up to Washington, to Boston, to New York, down to Florida, and a bunch of places in between. So keep an eye out. We're going to put some specifics and love to watch you. So I'm just throwing something in at the end, I guess, because I just want to keep talking. Hey, I love you. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching and all the support. We go live Monday and Wednesday, 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I don't even know why I'm saying this, because if you're watching till here, you're the ones that are already on with us, right? I appreciate you. But if you have not subscribed yet, holy moly, I really love you for making it to right here. Wow. Hopefully you got some value out of this. I'm assuming you did if you made it till here, and I'd love it if you'd subscribe. Trying to help. All right, hey, JJ the CPA here. You've never met a CPA quite like me.